everyone, welcome back to Get to the Plot Film Club. I'm very excited to be doing this episode and I hope we're all doing really well. I hope we've had a good week. Anything from my side? Nothing crazy's been happening, to be honest. I've had time off work this week, so I've been able to put a lot more energy into this, which is really nice. Although I do apologise about the fact that I forgot to upload the part to put the reviews. I don't know why it's always that bit that slips my mind, because I do the first one and I'm like, oh yeah, all done, and then I just forget to do the second one. But I will tell you something quite funny actually. Tomorrow I have a date. Disgusting behaviour. I'm not really one to go on dates a lot, to be honest, because I don't really like men, but I'm actually going on one tomorrow. But the funny thing is, and this actually had something to do with film, is that I'm having an IKEA date. Like, my first ever date with this man will be an IKEA date, and obviously the first thing that comes to my head is 500 Days of Summer. If you don't know that movie, please go and watch that movie. If it's ever on a free streaming service, don't worry, it will definitely be a film club pick. But I've always wanted to have an IKEA day. I think it should be so fun, just mooching around the showrooms and pretending that we've been married for the past 10 years, and then you go into all the knick-knack area and then you just talk about design choices, and then I can see if he has taste, which obviously he must have some taste because he's wanting to go on a date with me. But sorry, yeah. So I'd let you know, but yeah, maybe I'll share on him next week how it goes. Maybe I won't. We'll see. If it's an absolute disaster, I will tell everyone about this. But if it's great, then if I don't mention it, then have high hopes. But that's what I'm going to say. Anyway, The Importance of Being Earnest. That was the film choice for the week. And I'm not... Oh, I need to stop... I say and then I'm like, oh, do I say what I'm going to think? No, I'm going to wait until I get to reviews with everyone else, and I will say exactly what I've been thinking. But this film was made in 2002 by director Oliver Parker. And he has done 3 movies that were written by Oscar Wilde. Well, I say the movies weren't written, the plays or the books were written. He directed An Ideal Husband in 1999, and then did this movie, and then did Dorian Gray in 2009. It is a British-American co-production. Obviously, we've got the likes of Colin Firth, Rupert Everett, Frances O'Connor, and obviously then Reese Witherspoon is more for the American demographic within the movie. Now, while Reese Witherspoon was actually learning the English accent, her husband, Ryan Philippe, was filming Gosport Park in 2001. He had to learn a Scottish accent for the movie, but funnily enough, the one that picked it up the quickest out of the two of them in terms of their accents was Ava, their daughter. The score was written by Charlie Mull. He also did the composing for An Ideal Husband and Dorian Gray, and he actually had a little cameo in this movie, which I'm yet to see where he was, but he is credited as musical butler in the movie. Now, Oliver Parker's film remains, for the most part, a highly faithful adaptation to its source. Most of the changes that were made for necessity in order for it to reach a film runtime for modern cinema. Direct script-to-screen adaptation probably would have run shorter than the typical time. However, that's when Parker decided that he'd use multiple locations in order to convey this. This play is usually set kind of in one room, so he used different locations in order to expand the runtime, as well as the dialogue remaining pretty much intact throughout the whole movie. The production took place in a lot of those kind of picturesque locations that we've seen in so many period dramas. I especially think Bridgerton is the one that I think has kind of brought all of these to light. They filmed the main house in West Wickham Park, which has actually been used for so many different movies you probably haven't even realised. It's been used in films like Clockwork Orange, Labyrinth, What a Girl Wants, which irony Colin Firth's in, as well as Bridget Jones's Baby, X-Men, The Duchess, the list goes on, but it's definitely a place I would like to visit because of all of this information. It did cost, however, £50,000 for the filmmakers to acquire the set. Anna Massey, who played Mrs. Prism, and Dame Judi Dench, who played Lady Bracknell, reprised their role from the original National Theatre production that they did together in 1982. However, Judi Dench also did the same role in a 1992 BBC Radio 4 adaptation. And in the flashback scene where you see Lady Bracknell in the club, that is actually her daughter, Finty Williams, playing the young version of Judi Dench. Several unscripted moments were used in the final cut of the movie, particularly the one scene where Rupert Everett kind of slaps Colin Firth on the arse. That reaction for Oliver Parker was so comedic and funny that he just couldn't find himself to take it away from the real movie, so they kept that moment in. It's funny, I think Colin Firth and Rupert Everett have such a good dynamic together. And funnily enough, they'd already done 2 movies up until this point. They'd done Another Country and Shakespeare in Love, and then proceeded to do Centurions and Centurions 2 afterwards, which are like 2 of my favourite movies. I love them so much. I think it was kind of weird seeing them in this movie together, and that Rupert Everett was not dressed as a woman. And I never thought I'd say that. The movie also includes a lot of material that Oscar Wilde didn't actually keep in the final cut of the play. For example, Ernest's bill from the Savoy and the debt collectors turning up to Jack's house, but also there was a gardener called Moulton who was removed from the final version of the play, but you can see him throughout different scenes in the movie. The movie made just over $17 million worldwide in the box office, and their budget was $15 million, so it was only kind of a moderate commercial success within the box office. The film received generally favourable reviews. The movie holds an overall rating of 57% by Rotten Tomatoes, and the consensus stating that Oliver Parker's adaptation of the play is a breezy entertainment helped by an impressive cast, but it also suffers from some peculiar directorial choices that ultimately dampened the film's impact. While the critics only really did credit Judi Dench's performance, it was actually Reese Witherspoon that won a Teen Choice Award for Choice Movie Actress in 2002. And it also won the 2003 Italian National Syndicate of Film Journalists Silver Ribbon Award for Best Costume Design by, and I apologise if I get this wrong, but Maurizio Milanotti. I think that's how you say it. Now, in regards to costume design, because I know it was something that people actually really liked about the last episode with Bring It On, I couldn't find a lot of information in regards to directly from the source of the costume designer, but I did find a little quote that I found in an article that was then referenced to a book that I couldn't get hold of. But he said that when I designed The Importance of Being Earnest in London, the tension with the Brits happened once again. The idea that an Italian would go to Italy to make costumes for Oscar Wilde was sacrilegious. For whatever reason, I regret to say that they gave me a hard time. The moments in particular that really stood out to me were when Reese Witherspoon's character was reminiscing about the knight in shining armour that was going to come and save her, but that influence was taken from a lot of pre-Raphaelite paintings. Most iconically, you think of Ophelia's painting, if you know the one where the lady is lying in the river, which I think you could really see when you look back. And I think his costume design was really unique, and it's kind of sad that Brits shunned him out a bit, because I think his costume design really does make the movie. There wasn't loads that I could actually really find out about this movie. That was kind of the basis. However, I want to get into your reviews because I think there's lots to talk about in terms of the choices the director made, but also just the overall vibe of it. I think it's really interesting that it came out in the early 2000s, and yet it kind of feels more like a sort of late 90s kind of style movie. But I think here's an interesting thought for you, and I don't know if I might be barking up the wrong tree, but I know iPhone face is really like prevalent. Prevalent? Is that the right word? Maybe. But it's really quite pronounced in this day and age that if you have an actor that stars in a movie that is period, does it feel as though the iPhone kind of do they know what an iPhone is, basically? And I feel as though that everyone in this movie more so just screamed 90s, if that makes sense. I feel like Rupert Everett looked quite 90s style, like his hair and his demeanour anyway, and obviously Reese Witherspoon, very big actress during the 90s, early 2000s. So I think my mind kept going back to things like Cruel Intentions, and I think they've got those faces that really reminisce with that time. So I think it's kind of hard to detach from that. But let me know what you think on that. Is there ever any actors that you can only really think of from one movie, so when you see them in other movies it does just kind of take away? I think it's also when we chatted about The Odyssey, Tom Holland is such a iconic face now. He is Spider-Man, but also I think he's been in so many movies that you can't detach his previous parts from the new ones. So I think it's an interesting question to ask yourself. Funnily enough, everyone gave this film 3.5 stars, and I think I probably will as well. Ella gave it 3.5 stars and says, I love myself a period film. The cast, costumes and overall period charm of this was what really made it for me. I did feel like some scenes were a little random, brackets the tattoo scene, but there was still something so captivating about the way everyone delivered their lines. The wit, the voices, and the old-fashioned elegance all felt completely fitting for a story set in the Victorian era. Everyone felt perfectly cast, and Reese Witherspoon stood out for me the most. Her voice was genuinely captivating, and she had such a charm about her that made every scene she was in stand out. I agree with you on that, on the tattoo. I can never say tattoo because I want to say tattoo. But the tattoo scene. I'm guessing it was probably dramatic irony. Oscar Wilde did a lot of that in his writing, so I would guess that that's what they were trying to capture within that moment. However, I get what you mean. It's one of those things, I think sometimes in movies it doesn't always work when it is like the audience knows something that all the other characters don't, but when you don't come back to it, it's kind of irrelevant. But I get what you mean. I'm glad that the dialogue wasn't touched. I think that's really obvious, because I think also all the actors knew exactly what they were talking about, what they were delivering, and the purpose behind it. And I think also Judi Dench in the movie, she, for me personally, was the standout. However, I think she stood out because she was so perfect, and I feel like everyone else kind of went with the vibe of the movie. So I think Judi Dench stood out because she was so professional about it and so like elegant, like you say. But everyone else felt a little bit more like early 2000s. So yeah, but Reese Witherspoon as well. Again, like she has that vibe and that quirkiness, and also she's one of those people that audience can agree with, that you can understand why someone will drop everything for her. Obviously, Rupert Everett is like, you know, this is the woman I want to marry, and I've never really thought about marrying before. And you understand as an audience, you look at her and think, yeah, I'd drop everything. And it's always nice to be in that position where you can agree and understand a character's perspective, but it's not always easy in some movies. Emily says, this film was playful and theatrical and utterly unexpected, considering all I knew going into it was that it's Colin Firth in a period piece. There were definitely parts where I was a little confused, or it felt a little bit too much. Brackets, I cannot erase the image of Colin Firth shouting mummy from my head. But overall, whilst I didn't love it, certainly enjoyed watching it, and I think it captures the kind of theatrical, social subversion that Oscar Wilde embodied. Also, Reese Witherspoon is just stunning, yeah. I think, for me, the most confusing part was the end, because it's trying to tie up all the loose ends, and obviously it is all about deception, confusion, you know, things like that. And I felt myself being very confused. And I think moments like that where Colin Firth is being a bit silly, I think it was trying to be the vibe, and I'm guessing that's probably what Oliver Parker was after, just having little quirky moments that kind of took you out of the period of it. But I get what you mean. I think Colin Firth, he's so funny because when he does moments like this, especially in things like Mamma Mia or Nanny McPhee, for example, he has little quirky moments, and I think you can really see his soul just like shriveling when he does stuff. You can just see that, like, the regret. I don't know why, but like, even if you don't see his face, you can see it in his body language that what he's done, he instantly regrets, and he just keeps going, and props to him for that, because I don't know how he does it. Kat says, I had no idea what to expect, but this was camp, silly and funny. All the acting was great, and of course Colin Firth was brilliant. Some of the cuts were so random, the tattoo, but you can tell this is adapted from Oscar Wilde. Maybe I'm just dense, or my brain isn't switched on from having slept in a field for 2 days in a row, but I didn't see the brother twist coming. To be fair, neither did I. I can't quite put my finger on what was not making this a higher rated movie. Just a vibe, I guess, but it was enjoyable. Do you know what? I agree, actually. I think it was that it felt a little surface level. I didn't feel like there was so much to go into, but I think also, like you said, that tattoo, it was weird, and but I think it made it modern, if that makes sense. Like I said before, it kind of brings you out of it. But to be fair, like, I didn't know anything about this. I didn't know anything about this movie going into it, and I didn't see the brother twist coming, but I think my problem was I was really struggling to work out what everyone's relations were. And to be fair, like you said, Kat, I think I'm naturally dense anyway. At least, like, I'm sure you probably were just feeling tired from being away from home, but I am a little bit of an airhead, what can I say? And I think even being sat there and then working out that he was pretending to be his brother, but then that's his cousin and he's still flirting with her. And then I was getting confused because I was like, why would he be flirting with her? Because they're cousins and that's creepy. But then I guess for the time it probably isn't. And then, yeah, just working out then who Judi Dench was in relation to Colin Firth. But then I guess that's his auntie now. And yeah, I think I'm still glitching out about it, but it's still fun. And like you said, it's just a vibe. I think it is one of those movies where you just look at and say, I'm vibing with this. Don't know what's going on, but I'm having fun. And I think that's what matters. It's very similar vibe to Bring It On, I think. It was that thing of, it's got the quirky little moments in it. Couldn't really tell you much about what was going on, but did we all have a good time? And I think the consensus is yes. I think it's just a fun little watch of an evening, probably, and with your girlfriends, painting your nails and... no, this is so cringe. Hello, Katie from the editing room here. I actually realised that I never reviewed it myself. I think, though, I do agree with everyone else. I think I'm going to give it 3.5 stars. I think it's a good film. I wouldn't deny that it isn't. I just think it kind of, like Kat said before, it just misses the mark on some stuff, but you can't just quite put your finger on what it's missing. So that's why I'm giving it 3.5 stars. Back to Katie on the pod. But I'd watch it with my sister, that kind of thing, so yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in for this episode. It kind of felt a little bit short on the facts side, but actually some of them were quite interesting, so hopefully it kind of balances it out for you. But yeah, thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Next movie, I'm actually still a little bit undecided on, but don't tell anyone. Ooh. Yeah, we're gonna kind of probably panic pick. It's because basically I have one in mind that I want to do at some point, because we must celebrate an occasion, but I'm not going to say any more than that. However, I want to make sure I get it at the right time, so I just have to wait a little bit longer. So, yes, we'll watch this space, and soon we'll find out together which one it's going to be. So I'll see you all very soon, and thank you for listening. Love you all. Bye-bye.